Good morning, everybody. Dr. Jöel de Rosnay, welcome to the CIB Margarita Salas. It is a real pleasure to have you with us today. Thank you for being here to maintain a dialogue with the students of the Master of Molecular and Cellular Integrative Biology that jointly organized by the Spanish Research Council and the International Menéndez Pelayo University. You will also have the chance to chat with the audience participating through the Center's YouTube channel, which will broadcast this dialogue. Welcome also to this audience. For me, this is a very special moment as Jöel de Rosnay is one of my scientific heroes for more than 4 decades. At the beginning of 1978, believe it or not, by chance, I discovered the Spanish edition of his book, The Macroscope, in a bookstore on my way home from the science faculty of the University of Santiago de Compostela, where I studied my first year of the chemistry degree. That fascinating book significantly impacted my future path in science as a biochemist studying molecular interactions and his relation to biological organization and cell function. And I will come back to the macroscope in a moment. Dr. de Rosnay is an organic chemist and a biochemist by training and was a research associate at the MIT, a cultural attaché at the French Embassy in the United States, and director of research applications at the Pasteur Institute. Currently, among other things, he is the president of Biotics International, a consulting firm specialized in the prospective analysis of the impact of new technologies in the industry. De Rosnay is particularly interested in the applications of system theory to understand the complexity of nature and the society in which we live, captured in his books, The Macroscopes, already mentioned, and The Symbiotic Man, written 20 years later. The Macroscope was a book, in my opinion, ahead of his time, and very influential, not only to me, but worldwide in a broad range of areas such as politics, industry, science, and education, among others. Why? Because it uses a systemic approach to analyze the following question. Have ecology, the economic system, the industry, the city, the organism, and the cell something in common? At the beginning, you can, or if you take this superficially, it seems that they have very little in common if we examine them with a traditional analytical approach. However, they have many connections and linkage if you go further and explore these systems' fundamental organizing rules. The macroscope was a symbolic instrument to understand our world complexity, nature, society, ourselves. Such a device to study complexity is like the microscope to explore the infinitely small and the telescope to explore the infinitely great. Dr. de Rosnay is also a prolific author of more than 20 books of popular science, the first of which was The Origins of Life, written in 1966. In his latest book, published 2 years ago, the title is Epigenetics, he describes how the way we live influences our genes and offers us advice to improve our quality of life. In this book, he analyzed the relevance of epigenetic changes in our lives and the possibility of collectively modifying what he called the expression of social DNA. In the dialogue with Dr. de Rosnay, we will discuss these topics and others in which he is currently interested, as collaborative intelligence or the internet as a planetary brain, or other topics that I will mention at the end if are not if they don't appear in the dialogue. As he's also a pioneer of surfing in France, he can surely comment about surfing and life and control imbalance regarding life management. Jöel de Rosnay is the winner of several awards, and the most recently one is that 2 years ago he was elevated to the rank of Grand Commander of the Order of the Star and Key of the Indian Ocean by the Republic of Mauritius for his contribution to the field of research and the environment. I guess I understand that he had a close relation with that republic. Let me now tell you how we are going to organize this dialogue. There is no real talk. We are going to explain how the questions are being organized. Then there will be the questions of the students, questions from the audience, and finally, Cristina, the coordinator of this subject in the master, and myself will close the event. I don't know if you, Dr. Jöel de Rosnay, you want to say something at the beginning? I mean, it's now your moment.
I'm very honored by the presentation that you made of my work and what I do now. And I'm so happy to be invited by you to discuss with the students very interesting questions that I receive. I'm ready for you. I'm ready for all the time you need.
Okay, thank you very much. I forgot to show, I don't know if you can see, this is the original edition. In Spain is a little old, the book, but it's with me since then, and it will be with me, I hope, forever.
Thank you.
Let me go to the organization of the questions. We arrange, I mean, the students send us a lot of questions, which is very good, but in order to also get the
I have them.
Dr. de Rosnay already had the questions, but we organize them in 4 main topics that are personal issues, questions regarding de Rosnay as a person, professional and scientist. Then there will be some topics or questions about the macroscope. The third block, that is a big one, is about epigenetics. And the fourth one will be about future issues, and we will organize this question. We will deal about these questions, Cristina and myself. And Cristina will lead the first part of the questions, the ones regarding you, de Rosnay, the person.
So, thank you, Germán. Good morning to everyone, and very especially to our guest, the Professor Jöel de Rosnay. Thank you for being with us today and give to the MCIB master students this fantastic opportunity to join a conversation with you in this interactive and dynamic format. I read your book on epigenetics. I'm really enjoying it, and I agree with Germán. I'm thinking that this encounter is going to be very informative and very inspiring for the student and for all of us, the audience in the Zoom and in the CSIC Margarita Salas YouTube channel. Before we start with the questions, I would like to remind to our students to turn on their webcams during the intervention to make their interaction more personal and see each other's faces. And with any more delays, let's begin with a block of questions about Professor Rosnay's personal views and life, with a question by Paula. Paula, please, go ahead.
Hi, good morning. Thank you very much for being here. It's such a pleasure. My question is about surf, because I've read that you're a big lover of surfing, and so am I. So Normally, the surfers don't give up surfing soon because they try to continue surfing until they can. So I was wondering if you still surf and how important is surf in your life?
Yes, I do still surf, a bit less than in the past. I surf about an hour or two a day, not 6 or 7 hours as I used to do, but I still surf. It's very good for the shoulders, for the body. And also I want to express that a wave is like a model of life. And the wave takes you like the life takes us, but you can control our balance, our equilibrium during life, what I call balanced disequilibrium, which is exactly what surfing is about. And also surfing is about prediction, adaptation, and prevision. And this is about life, prediction, adaptation, and prevision. And also I would add resilience.
Thank you very much.
Next question is by David.
Hello.
Hello,
It's nice to virtually meet you. I have a couple of questions. The first one is, have you ever felt that the path you chose was what was expected of you at that time because of your academic achievements or for going with the flow? And secondly, have you ever considered giving everything up and dedicating yourself to anything different despite your success?
Okay, I always wanted to communicate. What I've learned as a professor was also demultiplied by the new means of communication, like movie, animated cartoons, books, and now the internet. So as a professor, I always wanted to communicate what I've learned. And my vocation since the beginning was to explain and to participate and to share. That was exactly what I wanted to do since the beginning. And your second question was if I want to continue doing this?
Yes. Or maybe some years ago, if you thought about doing something different in science or in other fields.
It's mixed in my life. I'm a professor, as I told you, so I want to explain, but I want to act. Not only explain, but I want to act on complexity of things. In the companies, I'm a consultant for big companies and also a writer of books, and also I participate in television programs, and I do a lot of cartoons. So I communicate in many different ways in the modern media. So as a consultant, I give my advice to companies. And also as a writer, I want to communicate with the largest audience as possible. And thanks to the internet, it is now possible in the digital world.
Well, it's amazing. Lots of things you do. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your question.
Next question is by Hector.
Yes. Hello, Dr. Rosnay. I would like to know, what do you think we can do with our limited time to become the best possible version of ourselves? And how can we bring goodness upon others?
Okay, there are two words, Hector, very important. One is information. Second one is sharing. Inform yourself. I'm sometimes very astonished by the fact that students, and particularly managers, do not inform themselves with the extraordinary search engine that we have today. Google is a fantastic tool to get information from newspapers all around the world. You can receive them every morning if you want. So information is the key to understand complexity of the world today and to act on the world. So I keep saying to students and I keep saying to managers, do inform yourself as much as you can, because you will be able to act efficiently if you are well informed and if you compare information with each other and if you combine information. So get as much informed as you can. Don't be submerged with data. Just try to select And now artificial intelligence will help us to connect information with each others and to connect information to be more and well informed. This is why I call artificial intelligence auxiliary intelligence, to make us augment our brain with artificial intelligence. So my lesson is to act efficiently in life, be well informed, and today you have the tools to do it well as a student or as a manager.
Okay, thank you very much.
And next question is by Gianfranco.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good morning. I wanted to ask you, of all the published work you've done, all the books you've written, which is your favorite one, or the one that you would recommend the most other people reading?
My books, I have many new books that I really like. One by Yuval Harari. He's an Israeli writer, very interesting. He wrote a book called Sapiens. And his recent book is 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. That's the one I would highly recommend to students. Yuval Harari. The second one I will highly recommend is Steven Pinker. Steven, S-T-E-V-N, Pinker, P-I-N-K-E-R. Steven Pinker. And he wrote a very interesting book called The Angel Part in Us. La part d'ange en nous. It's a very optimistic book about the future, very positive, telling us how we can together create the future and not dominated by the future created by others. So Yuval Harari, Steven Pinker are really also modern to read. And as past author, I recommend Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, the French Jesuit, who wrote about complexity in life and still very valid, even when he wrote this in 1950s. And Pierre Teilhard de Chardin is a French Jesuit, and he wrote a book called The Phenomenon of Man, which is still extremely modern today, The Phenomenon of Man. And the two others I mentioned are Yuval Harari, Sapiens, and Steven Pinker, The Angel Part in Us.
Okay, I think that that's very interesting, but I was also asking for your books, the books that you have written. Which is your favorite one?
Well, the most important influence a lot of people is the macroscope.
Okay.
On complexity. The macroscope, there is the microscope, the telescope. The macroscope is a tool to understand complexity. And this is the most important book for me, which will remain in history and for students and manager, as it influenced so many lives of people who told me and testimony and witnessed that this book changed their lives. The
Okay.
macroscope is the most important book.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
So the next question is by Natalia.
Good morning.
Aline.
My question is, how do you think that scientists can work together and share their results in this competitive society that we have nowadays?
Well, we have a competitive society on the economic point of view and on the financial point of view. The beauty of science is that it brings rationality into emotion, and rationality can bring people together. Finance, they fight. Economics, they would fight. But the rationality of science can bring people together. So we need even more science in the world of today. And I'm trying to contribute with your students that you are. I'm trying to contribute to communicate the importance of science through my books and my television program.
Thank you.
So we have an extra question from YouTube channel. Is the question is, what advice could you give to your younger self, if you could? And a second question is also, how do you manage sharing scientific information to the general public?
How I share scientific information to a large audience. Today we have fantastic tools to do that. In the old times we only have books like that, paper books, but now we have paper books, and I put my books free on the internet.
Mhm.
4 of my books on my website, www.derosnay.com. You can go and can read those books free. I put them on my website and you can read them without paying for them. So it's a fantastic tool that books can be digitalized and put on the internet. Go on my website, www.derosnay.com, and you'll find all those books free for you.
Oh, this is fantastic. And the other question was, what advice would you give to your younger self, if you could?
What advice I would give to what?
To yourself, a younger Jöel.
My advice to myself?
Yes.
What advice I can give to myself?
See, a younger one. Yourself younger. If you had your 20s, for instance, which advice you will give yourself?
The advice I would give to myself today is to keep going on listening to people and sharing. Keep going on. I want to live 120 years. So I have many years in front of me, and I want to continue sharing, expressing myself, be open to any ideas, any people, communicate, share what I call the human link as more as I can to make people give meaning to their life.
Okay. Oh, beautiful. So thank you very much. And with this, we finish this section of questions. We are going to move to the next section about macroscope. Herman?
We had several questions about the macroscope. And the first one is Rosa has a question on the macroscope.
Good morning.
Yes.
Well, I was wondering if your opinion of the idea of the macroscope has changed since you wrote the book in 1975, and if so, what would you say about this symbolic instrument nowadays?
Well, what has changed completely and make the macroscope even amplified in the use of companies or science is what I call computer simulation. Computer simulation is a real lab to understand complexity and to apply the systemic approach with the computer and to simulate complex system and play the game. If I do this, what would happen? If I do this, what would happen? Simulation is the #1 tool to amplify the macroscope today. And I'm trying to use it many times with many people as a consultant, to use simulation to tackle the complexity of major companies.
Okay, thank you.
No, Gianfranco has a question on this topic too.
Yes.
Hi, I wanted to ask you, I find this very confusing, but how can analytical studies be integrated into a vision of the whole?
Say it again.
How can analytical studies be integrated to reach a vision of the whole?
You mean ethical studies, ethics?
No, analytical.
Analytical studies are complementary with the system approach. They're not separated. Some people believe that, as I wrote many times on system approach, I neglect the analytical approach. Not at all. Analytical approach is absolutely necessary, but it's complementary with system approach. A balance of flow, information in one direction, information in the other direction. Analytic in one sense, systemic in the other. They need each other. They are complementary. They don't exclude each other. So again, understand what I say. When I talk a lot about systemic approach, I never neglect the analytical approach, never.
Okay, thank you.
And the third question on this topic is by Hector.
Yes, hi again. And I would like to know, how can we as individuals have a complete vision of the whole?
The complete vision, I said again, information and finding the links. Always concentrate on the links. We do, after Descartes, René Descartes, concentrate on the elements. Elements are important, but the most important are the links between elements. And I would add the dynamic interaction of elements together. Dynamic interaction between people, creation of new things come from dynamic interaction between people. So concentrate on the elements, but more important than the elements is the links between the elements. Create a complex system. That is the important. Analytical studies are important, but the link between the elements is more important than concentrate only on the elements themselves, isolated.
Okay.
These somehow relate with your thoughts on empathic revolution, I guess.
Yes, yes. It's a practical revolution is using simulation to simulate complex systems. What would happen if I do that? The game of if. If I do this, what would happen? What would change? And a lot of people are using simulation now with companies and forecasting. A lot of people. And you can even go on the internet and you can use Watson, which is the artificial intelligence of IBM. You can use Watson to simulate complex systems. And you can use it, do it yourself. You will see that's amazing.
Okay, thank you very much.
You.
And now we are going to turn to the third block that is on epigenetics. And Cristina will lead this part of the session.
Yes, we have a question from Gianfranco.
Hello again.
Yes, hello, Gianfranco.
I have 3 questions about these epigenetic books. I think I should make them separately to be less confusing, I guess. The first one would be, in your book Epigenetics, you mentioned the effect of sports, meditation, and relationships on epigenetics. I found that chapter very interesting, but I would like to know your opinion on what do you think love is and how can it affect us in an epigenetic way?
Right. First, you have to remember that epigenetics is how you can modify the expression of genes, like turning the knob of your radio to be stronger or slower. You can turn the knob of the genes to make them more responsive, less responsive, turned off or turned on. Love has a way to modify the expression of genes for positive things, anti-stress, positive vision, creation, and the modification of genes through loves opens other genes which are positive for positive behavior, creations, participation, sharing, link to the others, listening to other people, be open. So this is exactly what epigenetic does, modifying the expression of genes through behavior.
Okay. My next question would be, so I read in your book in the last chapters that you think that in the future we will have a citizen government. So the people will be the important factor in the government. So it's more, citizenship. And I wanted to ask you, what do you think we as individuals can do to achieve that? Because I feel like nowadays there's not much we can do, but I wanted to know your opinion on this.
Okay, first you mentioned in the last part of my book what I call the memes. The memes are the social genes. And as I called epigenetics, I mentioned epimemetics. Epimemetics is how we will be able together to change the genes of society, to change DNA, society DNA, companies DNA, together by participation in what I call citizen feedback. Citizen feedback is a way to learn by evaluation the impact of our collective decision. Collective decision is important, but even more important than collective decision is the evaluation on collective decision together, how we can evaluate and see that we are in the right track. And this is what I call epimemetics, like how together through the modern media of the digital world and the digital ecosystem, we will be able not to act only collectively, but to evaluate our collective action. This is the key of epigenetics, as I called it at the end of my book. Thank you for mentioning it. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think I will have to read it again because I find that very interesting, and I think I have to process the ideas more.
Do it. You can go further than I myself. I push the ideas of epigenetics, and now you have to act it, make it work.
Sure. And finally, my last question on epigenetics is that, so from your book, I get this idea that I want to know your opinion. So can epigenetics, can they harness, sorry, can epigenetics be harnessed to control or improve our health and aging?
Yes, definitely. There's a big challenge for major companies in the pharmaceutical industry today, is to be able to address the gene that they want to amplify. But we're not there. We're not there yet. It's very difficult to find out what are the genes you want to amplify and those you want to switch off. But big pharma is on that right now. How to find the genes, how to amplify them, how to change. This will be the medicine of the future. What I call 4P medicine, or preventive, participative, prospective, preventive medicine. It will come from the side for the targeting of the epigenetics genes. We can act on them. Big pharma is on that right now.
Sounds very interesting. Thank you very much.
It's the future.
So Paula has also some questions.
Yeah, hi again.
No.
Just to put this a bit into context, can you tell us why epigenetics is that important?
The epigenetic is very important because it adds responsibility to our lives. By practicing epigenetics through your behavior, you can be in better health, so you cost less money to the social security of your country, be in better health, age slower, live longer, and you can practice epigenetic in a simple way: nutrition, stress management, exercise, linked to the others, and pleasure. Pleasure is very important. For a long time, religion had told us that pleasure will bring you to hell, down. No, but pleasure is the key of life.
Okay, perfect. So does epigenetic modify the DNA itself or only the gene expression?
Well, it doesn't modify DNA. Never change one base in DNA, but it changes the expression of genes, the dynamic. Like if you have an application on your smartphone, you don't change the code, you don't change the OS of your smartphone, but you can change the way your smartphone works. That's epigenetics.
Okay, perfect. And now I have also a couple of questions that were like a bit specific, because I've been reading about how epigenetics affects to the sport and how it's important the sport. And I was wondering, because the practice of a sport, has been shown to favor the synthesis of serotonin and the production of endorphins, and
yes,
that's proof. But I was wondering if this also happens when the person hates the particular exercise. I mean, if the desire to do a sport affect this release of hormones, like if you don't want to do that sport, can that affect?
Yes, it does. Well, there is a pleasure of sport, and the people who do sports by obligation. They do it because they want to lose weight, or they do it obligated, don't like it very much. There's no the pleasure of sport which creates oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine, as you said. So you have to find pleasure. I said before, pleasure in everything: pleasure in your work, pleasure in your life, pleasure in your family, pleasure in what you try to do, you want to do, pleasure in eating, pleasure in making love. All this is part of life. So you have to find pleasure in sports, or you don't do it. If you use sports for pleasure, then you produce all the hormones in your brain, and you feel so happy to do it that you want to continue.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. Well, I think it's also in this line, my other question that is about the emotions and the mood that someone can be if they are able to affect us epigenetically.
Emotion is a key. Intelligence and emotion goes together, as the psychologist Damasio have written about. Emotion, there is the QI, the quotient intellectuel, but they also the emotional quotient. They go together. Intelligence and emotion goes together. You are intelligent because you can feel emotion. So emotion is essential in the pleasure, and you have to always create emotion by linking with other people, linking with art, linking with music, linking with landscape. And I'm sometimes not happy when I see people with a smartphone, when something happens, a nice landscape, when they come down off the bus, everybody wants to take a picture and put it on Facebook. Well, that's one thing. The most important thing is to take pleasure of what you see, not taking the picture to show others that you have been there. Take the pleasure when it comes. A landscape, person, nice conversation with a person in the street, nice television program that you can discuss with your children. Emotion is fundamental with pleasure. It goes together.
Yeah, totally. I think the same thing. And okay, and just to finish with my questions, there is this question about pollution, because nowadays it's very present in our lives. And I was wondering, how could the pollution affect to our epigenetic, if it is able to affect?
Well, in two ways. Pollution can affect epigenetics in the way that we are in worse bad health because of pollution. Bad health linked to epigenetics. As you feel bad, you're sick and you're not very good in good health. Also, environment can help us to understand the environment, have a systemic view of our environment, and that helps epigenetics because we can relate better to our environment. And as we can relate better, you feel better. And as you feel better, you age less faster. And also you feel in good health. So environment and epigenetics are linked because it's a system view of being happy in the environment in which you are. And pollution, not only the pollution of air that you breathe, but also the pollution of the mind because of too much data. We call it big data. If too much data goes into your brain, you cannot get rid of it. And that's another form of pollution we have to get rid of.
Okay, I see it's all linked. Thank you very much.
Okay. Miriam has a question.
Hello, yes. My question is also related with the thing of Paula, and it was about nutrition that you already mentioned it. And it was if you think that an adequate nutrition and stress management control strategies can help us to control the gene expression.
Yes, absolutely. I think that one of the worst diseases which leads us to death is stress. One of the worst diseases of the life today is the stress that you can manage. If you cannot manage your stress, it stays on your body and you get sick. Stress is the worst thing for life today. If you cannot manage stress, you feel sick and you will live shorter. Managing stress is a key. Managing stress are many ways. You can do meditation. Mm-hmm. You can always try to eliminate stressful things from television, from information. Think about happy things. Think about nice people. Always try to see the positive. This is what I'm trying to do to avoid stress. I see positive things everywhere. I see a positive future. When people talk to me, I try to find what they tell me, my students, the positive things in their words, and I answer back positive things to give them the need to continue and not be stressed by the difficulty of life and the pollution and the violence today. Pollution, violence stress us, but being positive trying to see what you can do to be positive and build a positive future, help to avoid stress. But meditation is also very strong.
Okay, thank you for your tips. And I had another question because I remember the first time I heard about epigenetic with my teacher. Actually, I was speaking with him before the lecture and I was telling him that I was going to meet you virtually and he was super wow. And I remember he told us that that if a child had suffered a lot when he was a child, or someone that has suicidal behaviors, that this could affect epigenetic. And I would like you to tell us something about this.
Yes, something which is where you're sad about, when you're stressed about, as I said it affects epigenetics, definitely.
Everything.
It affects the expression of your genes. And it reveals the stress genes rather than the non-stress gene when you are optimist. Being optimist is very important. You know, there are optimists and pessimists. I like not to be either optimist or pessimist, but I try to be positive. It's very different. Being optimist or pessimist, you close yourself into a bubble. You say, I am optimist or I am pessimist. But when you're optimist, when you're positive, it's neither pessimist or optimist. It's a situation which allows to see you things positive in life and in the future. So be positive.
Okay, we will try. Thank you.
So with this, we finish the section of questions about this section, and we are going to move on. Herman, you will continue with the section of future.
Now I will go to future, and I'm going to select a question by Natalia about scientific research.
Yeah. Hello again. Yeah, I would like to ask you, what do you think that there are some of the hot topics that are going to come in these future years in biological research?
I think one of the hot topics will be understanding the brain, understanding how the brain functions, the neurological aspect of neuron together. But there is a bias. It's very important, but there is a bias. If the brain understands how it works, it's a brain which is telling us the way it works. Are we sure that we are objective and not subjective? The brain works in a way that tells us how it works, but are we sure that it's the real way? Because we are part of the problem. But it's the future. I think the future is the brain. The future is understanding the neurons and the brain, simulating on the computer with artificial intelligence. And I think artificial intelligence will help us a lot to understand the way our brain functions and will augment us.
Okay, and I have another question that is that do you think that after these months of the pandemic that we have a lot of wrong information, that the scientific community should be more aware about the importance of scientific divulgation?
Definitely. The pandemic has been also analyzed by scientists to explain how dangerous it was and also how not dangerous it was, how many people are affected. The statistics which were given by the scientists and the medical profession are very important. So after the pandemic, I think we need even more science because pandemic, the COVID virus is fear, and fear is anti-science. Fear is anti-science. Fear is always, oh, I'm worried. But science brings rationale and shows you how to situate yourself vis-a-vis the fear and vis-a-vis reason. We need more science.
Thank you.
We had a question on scientific research by Gianfranco, and then the last one on this topic will be David.
Hello again. This is my last question, I promise. Yes. I'm very fond of this European research program, which its purpose is to obtain this synthetic cell from the bottom up. So this is a very, to do this, we have to analytically study this. And I was wondering, when reading your book, The Macroscope, how can this be analyzed through the macroscope? Because we have to do a systemic approach to build a synthetic cell. So I wanted to ask your opinion on this program and how can we do it, or what do you think of this idea?
I think it's a very important European program, and I mean, even so important that I wrote this book after the macroscope on the origin. It's called Et l'homme créa la vie, and man created life. It's about the synthesis of life. I'm absolutely convinced that in the next 20 years, men will be able to create life from scratch, from molecules assembled together in a system. I'm absolutely sure that we will be able to do it. That will create a lot of religious problems. That will create a lot of ethical problems, but men will create life artificially from molecules and from isolated systems. I'm sure they will do it.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I didn't know that you wrote a book about it. It's another book I have to read now.
Yes.
And I will be very interested in it.
And men created life.
Okay.
Okay. And now, David, what is your question about this CRISPR-Cas?
Hello again.
Hello.
Well, my question is, what is your opinion on the ethical problems on human gene editing by CRISPR-Cas methodologies?
Well, first, ethical problems about genomics are very important, and we should never isolate genetic progress from ethical analysis. They always together, they work together. Now, CRISPR is a technology which is so powerful. To give you an example, it's like word processor on a book. You write a book, a novel, and you want to change the name of the hero of the book from John to Steve, and you say change John to Steve in 300 pages. That's what CRISPR does. CRISPR says take that gene and change that gene for this one in the whole genome of the excuse me.
Yes.
So you understand that CRISPR is the most powerful method of modifying genes that we ever invented. But to CRISPR are linked ethical problems, and we should. The Chinese have started to use CRISPR on an embryo, and that creates a lot of ethical questions. So we have to think about CRISPR and ethical questions together, always.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Now we will go to the final topic of this fourth block, that is on energetic transition for the future. Yes. And it's a question by Miriam on this subtopic.
Yes, I've heard you sometimes speaking about smart cities, and I would like to know how far do you think we are from researching smart cities, and how would this change the world?
Well, first, my position has been always in my books and my articles about what I call energy mix. Energy mix, the 3E is new energies mixed together, not one by one, but all together. Second one, energy efficiency. And third one, economy of energy. So this I call 3E, new energies, economies of energies, and energy efficiency. So the future I see is a future of a mix, not only using that new energy like solar panels or wind energy or water falling, not only this one or this one, but all together. That's what I keep saying to industrialists and to the government, is to use a mix of energy mix, not energy separated. People say, oh, solar panels are better than wind, or biomass is better than solar panel. No, that's wrong, completely wrong. Biomass plus solar panels plus wind energy all together with a digital ecosystem linking them together is the future.
Okay, thank you very much.
And now is Rosa. Rosa has a couple of questions, I guess.
Yes.
Yes, that's it. Well, hello again. And do you think the implantation of smart cities could create more difference between the rich countries and the poor ones?
Well, first, smart cities are very important for the future because a smart city can be also producer and saver of energy. Because through the digital world in these smart cities, it's a digital ecosystem, and you can, as it has been done in Brooklyn in America, you can regulate economies of energy using what is called a blockchain. By using a blockchain, sharing people energy between themselves, you can regulate the consumption of energy into city. So I think smart cities will be a key to produce energy from the roofs, interconnected roofs. And now I know that companies are producing solar tiles to protect against the rain. The tiles are now linked to each other like a Lego to produce energy from roofs. And I think the enormous surface of roofs in smart city will be able to create a lot of energy. So I agree with smart city will be a key to produce energy for the future. And through the digital ecosystem, we'll be able to help people find their ways in cities, find the information that you need. At the same time, try to avoid that people will be controlled in smart city, like the Chinese want to do it by recognizing the faces. And we have to be careful about this for the future. So smart cities, in one sense, is a benefit for producing energy and saving energy, but at the same time, smart city is a danger for individual privacy.
Yes, that was my next question, that if you think that the idea of smart cities can be used in our own way, because in one of your talks, you talk about what happened in China, that they give to the citizens a social quality number. So do you think that this could be used with a bad purpose?
Yes, absolutely, I agree. I wrote about this very recently. You can find my article on my website. I think smart cities can be a fantastic tool for us to accommodate our life in the city, because the city is part of us. We are member, as a coral reef is made of coral reefs, is a symbiosis. As a coral reef is a symbiosis between producing coral and an algae would produce it by photosynthesis, the energy that the coral needs. A city is same thing. A smart city is like a coral reef. We are like corals producing energy and using energy at the same time. So smart city will be a fantastic boost for the future of us together in the future of life. But at the same time, I agree with you, it could be a danger by controlling our lives. So we have to be informed. We have to fight against the use of smart cities by governments against us. So we have to be informed. We have to participate in association, in groups to be sure that the smart city will be not used against it, but for us.
Thank you so much.
I think that we want to get some time also for the audience. I don't know if the audience is asking questions. I don't see, but maybe Christina.
Yes, we have one question from the audience in YouTube.
Yes.
And is
I want to see the audience. I don't see the audience now.
No, the audience probably is not in the room, in the YouTube channel.
Yes. Do you think that artificial intelligence will advance so much that we will not be able in the future to understand it for ourselves?
Artificial intelligence will augment our brain. This is why I changed the name of artificial intelligence into auxiliary intelligence, CIA, but auxiliary intelligence to augment the brain of man. And I think it will help us understand ourselves more than ever. all the studies that we've made on us and on the brain, artificial intelligence or auxiliary intelligence will be the key to understand how our brain functions and how the brains are connected in society to change society.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Before we pass to the last question, one question that I missed from the previous section, but is also in the context of future, is Martin that has the question.
Hi, thank you for the talk. I wanted to ask you, what's your opinion about epigenetics and therapeutic treatments in the next 50 years? What do you think is going to be the impact of epigenetics in health and therapeutic treatments?
It would be enormous, but not as the way it is now. The way it works now, it's empirical. We use epigenetics into an empirical way. We don't really know what genes we can trigger and what we can turn off. But the future of big pharma is to find the target, to find the right genes to amplify it or turn it off. We're not there yet, but about 30 labs in the world I know are working on that right now, but we're not there. But that's the future, to find the gene and amplify that or turn it off.
Thank you.
There is a question.
I
More
think
questions?
Hector wants to also to ask a
Hector,
question.
your last chance.
I don't see the person asking the question.
Hi, sorry. Hello again, Dr. Rosnay.
I don't see you. Martin.
I am aware that you began the Smart Mauritius project some years ago,
yes,
which was based on the association between the internet and energy management, creating a sustainable and futuristic city.
Yes, that's what my idea that I call Smart Mauritius, to preserve and mix energies by using a digital island connected. It's small enough, 1.5 million people to be connected with smartphone. I call it Smart Mauritius, but it's still a project because it has to face so many lobbies, so many industrial telecommunication lobbies, which are against bringing things together. They want to keep their own power separated to be able to control the future. And I'm trying to still make Smart Mauritius a project. The Prime Minister is interested, and I talked to him several times. But again, the lobbies are trying to fight against it, and it still is a fight. I've not succeeded yet.
Okay, thank you very much.
Cristina, more questions from the audience, or
no,
we can just conclude? Also, I am curious. Well, we cover many aspects, and I would like to finish with a couple of comments or questions about. I think that you are promoting, or you are a big defender of the cooperative model in general and collaborative intelligence. But what about this model in science for the future?
Well, that's the way it always worked. I was at the Institut Pasteur, manager of applied research. I created links and networks between people so they can communicate and exchange information. So this word I'm going to say is very important. It's in the dynamic interaction between people that new ideas emerge. I repeat, it's in the dynamic of interaction between people that new ideas emerge. Dynamic and emergence are two important words.
Okay, very good. And just to finish, you are also a promoter of hyperhumanism. That is an important movement that is not transhumanism.
Exactly.
Could you explain a bit?
Exactly, as that word indicates, hyperhumanism is even more human. Humanism is already a very important value of humanity. Humanism is a respect of freedom, respect of ideas, respect of liberty of expression. That's humanism. And hyperhumanism is in fact opposed to transhumanism. Transhumanism is an elitist view of being more individually, even by modifying our brain through transplant and chips in the brain like Neuralink. I'm against transhumanist as an elitist view, selfish and elitist. But hyperhumanist is exactly the contrary of that. Hyperhumanist is being together to be more human, to be augmented, and to be augmented for the others, and to be augmented to build a collective future that we will be proud of, and not dominated by a future created by somebody else.
Okay. And just to finish, I heard that you are you had another book in project that with the acronym GOP. Could you explain a bit about this project? I mean, because I found intriguing when I learned about that, the great organizing principle of the universe. Are you working on that at the moment, or?
I'm working on that, and through the duration and time, the topic of the book, through duration and time, through our time of life, is linked to the grand principe organisateur de l'univers, the great organizing principle of the universe that some people call God. I don't want to call it God, but let's call it GOP, the grand principe organisateur de l'univers. Some people will revert to God, but I want to see it as a scientific point of view of this principle which organizes the universe, the leaves, the plants, the insects, the animals, and us. And that's why I'm writing about it.
Okay, really, it has been a pleasure and an honor having you around. You are very energetic. And I think that your recipe for living a good life, love, giving, and curiosity, you are a good example for that recipe, and it's working with for you. Really, it was an honor, and we are very grateful for you to be with us for 1 hour that we will keep in our memory. And now I had another thing to keep in my memory besides your books, that is yourself.
Thank you very much for your questions. It was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you.